Alright guys, so today on Behind the Screens we are actually talking about a pretty sad subject. That is player death. Womp womp womp. So this is something that came up this past weekend in my homebrew campaign, which is what I often talk about on these videos. So sorry if that's not what you're into, but that's what I'm super interested in, so that's what I'm sharing. But player death. So we had our very first player death, and it's the very first one that I've ever actually DM'd, or really experienced personally in a game, and it was extremely emotional, extremely heartbreaking, extremely on the edge of my seat. So here, let me set the scene for you. So the party has entered a dungeon below a lake that is draining. They're trying to figure out why the lake has lost all of the water, and they found a mysterious structure at the bottom of the lake. They go inside, they investigate, they find these beautiful statues with different gems. Some have gems in them, some don't have gems in them. Some of the gems are pulsing. They're trying to figure out this mystery. So the party walks into a side room that seems to be some sort of library, and surprisingly, in the library, standing there is a troll. He is massive, he's albino, and he is holding a book in his hands, of all things. When the party walks in the room, he actually puts the book in his mouth and growls at them, and the party, being the ever-wise people that they are, they decided not to attack the troll. They decided to actually try to befriend him. And so the qualifier that I had set up on my end was the troll won't take any offensive action if the party doesn't take any offensive action against him. If he isn't attacked, he won't attack. So they actually fed him a bunch of rations. They got the book from him, which ended up being a tome of clear thought, which is going to be very dangerous for some player somewhere, as well as a scroll that was tucked inside the book that would allow them to remove one of the stones from the statue, one of the stones that was pulsing. So they find this clue, they find this very rare relic, and now they have a troll. What are they going to do? Well, they continue exploring the rest of the rooms. Just off of this beautiful library, there's a bedroom with a beautiful 4-poster bed, and across from the bed, there is a painting, and the painting itself has been ripped off of its canvas, and left behind is simply the frame that the painting was in. And on the other side of the frame, they can easily see a door, a hidden door. So our paladin and our monk decided that they were going to just charge right in, and they proceeded to open the door, and they find a very long hallway with a room at the end with a treasure chest sitting on the floor. Now, our paladin loves opening chests, he loves opening boxes, and this became too much for him. The monk tried to stop him. He rolled an investigation to try to see if there were any traps. He only rolled a 14. The DC on the trap was a 15. So the paladin and the monk rush ahead. They end up stepping on a pressure plate on the floor and end up setting off an acid trap. Acid comes pouring down from the ceiling. They leap forward into the room with the treasure chest, making a dexterity save, and land on the other side. As soon as they land on the other side, a portcullis falls and traps them on the other side in the room with the chest. Now, the chest itself, it's just a chest. It has some gold in it, some 2 rings, doesn't matter. There's stuff in the chest, which makes our paladin pretty happy. And they realize they're good. Standing back in the other room, we still have our druid and we have our warlock. And they're standing around with a giant albino troll, who's just standing hanging out. Our paladin realizes, I bet that troll is pretty strong. So he asks the troll, he's like, come here, come open this portcullis. When technically, I'm pretty sure the paladin and the monk could have opened it on their own, but he invites the troll over to open the portcullis, not remembering that there's a pool of acid on the floor. So as soon as the as soon as the troll steps into the pool of acid and steps on the pressure plate, thus releasing another gush of acid, the troll then decides that it's going to attack. He sees that it is an aggressive action, and so battle ensues. Now, we have our party split, divided by circumstance. This portcullis has fallen. This troll is on one side with the druid, with the warlock. It attacks the druid who is the closest to him, and Fortunately, the portcullis has holes. The paladin and the monk are able to shoot things through it. The fight seems to be going well, and actually the troll starts to run away. He is like, you guys are too powerful, and starts running away. The druid, however, in her wisdom, uses Thorn Whip and casts Thorn Whip, which wraps a vine with thorns around his ankle, pulls him back towards her so that the paladin and the monk still have visibility, line of sight to the troll. And the troll turns and basically knocks her unconscious. He had already hit her a couple times. She was really low, and she could have chosen to heal herself or do other things, and instead she tried to get the troll back into combat range for the rest of the party. Whether or not that was the right choice, maybe it wasn't. But the troll had 3 attacks. He hit her out on the first attack and then did 2 more attacks, thus rendering her with only 1 death save, which on her next turn, before the paladin could open the portcullis, before anyone could reach her, it became her turn, and she failed her final death save. And in that exact moment, I looked at Emily, who was playing this character, and I knew she was going to fail her roll. And she told me later that she knew she was going to fail her roll. And she rolled, and she failed, and I turned to the rest of the party, and I said, and now Celadril falls on the floor, completely dead. Not just unconscious, but dead. And basically panic erupted around the table. Emily stayed at the table while they proceeded to try to pick up her body and find someone who could fix it. Keeping in mind they are currently level 5, they don't have Revivify, they don't have Resurrection, they don't have anything with them that could potentially save her in this situation. So there is mass panic from the characters around the table where they're trying to find someone who can help heal her. And so thankfully there is a village priest in the nearby village. It just very fortuitously happened that it's an elf only village. They have some prejudices, but thankfully Celadril is an elf. And so I turned to all the players at the table and I said, guys, you got to work with me here for a second. I want to do you guys right by this. I want to make sure that this is what you want. And I usually don't try to break character that much when we're playing. I really try to facilitate the story, and I don't talk to them as people, like as my friends. I talk to them as their characters. But this time I actually broke, and I said, you know, I haven't done this before. I want to do this right. Give me a minute. And I actually went to the other room. I picked up I have it right here. Ugh. I'm gonna drop something, it's gonna be sad. I picked up my Tal'Dorei guide because I am actually playing using the Matthew Mercer rules for Resurrection. I've just never had to use them before. And found the page and read through what needed to happen for them to try to enact a resurrection ritual. And basically, I put forth the challenge to them, and I made them play in character how they would call back their friend Celadril. And I have never had a more emotional campaign moment than that moment, because each of them actually took the time and thought about what their character would truly say to their friend who had fallen and what they would do in order to try to get her back. And it was interesting. It really, I think, has shifted the dynamic for the players. It made it really real to them. And as a DM, I'm glad that I sat and I took the time and I made sure, even though it took me a minute, I had to step away. I had to, my main tenet when I am trying to play is just to keep it moving forward, to not feel like it has a break, to make sure that it feels free flowing. But this was a time where I said, no, I need to stop. I need to make sure this is right. I need to make sure that I'm doing the right thing, because there is a right thing here. I don't want to have to go back and retcon this later. I want to make sure I understand the rules. So they all made their petitions, and I rolled the final d20, and it was a success. She was revived. She was resurrected. But it was potentially very close there, and everyone around the table was feeling it. And now we've had games where we've cried, actually literally cried in the game, but this was the first time that it really felt like there was something at stake, that there was a real emotional connection. And afterwards, Emily came up to me and she said, I don't know what I would have done if Celadril had actually died. There's so much that she hasn't done yet, and I feel so personally connected to who she is that I don't know how I would be able to go on if she had actually been gone. And I think it gave all the players a moment of that feeling of like, what would I have done in this situation? What would I do if my character was dead? And it made it that much more real. So while I'm not saying that you should kill your players, because I'm a kind DM, I try to make it as fun as possible. This is an adventure we're all on together. I do think that it was almost an amazingly good thing to have happen, to have my players be sort of in a situation where they were faced with a seemingly life and death moment. It made it feel that much more real. It made it feel that much more high stakes. And it really, I think, has been a major turning point in our campaign. It also increased the role playing. Not that my friends really need a lot of help with role playing, but there are some who are better than others, as you would have with any group, and everyone stepped up to the plate. It was very equal role playing across the board, and everyone really rose to the challenge to really tell a story that was meaningful. Afterwards, I really regretted that I didn't record it because it was so good. It was so good, and I knew halfway through, I was like, I should have recorded this because I would love to hear it again instead of freaking out in the DM seat, like sitting there as the priest chanting and listening to what they're saying. I really wish I could go back and hear it again, and hear the way that they petitioned for Celadril to come back. It really shows how you can leverage the emotional connection that people have to their characters, that they have to a game, beyond just killing things and going on adventures and finding really cool loot. It really can be a personal journey. And as an outcome of this, one of the characters in the campaign, Eric's character, Noravar, professed his love for Celadril, and they've been at just an impasse the entire campaign, and I had kind of known that this might come at some point, but this really brought it to a head, and it's actually leading to even more role-playing that's going to happen. So I think in the long run, this is going to be really good for bringing the group together, like really solidifying them as a group. And I could not be happier that I was able to facilitate that in a way that felt meaningful to them, and not just meaningful, but meaningful to the campaign overall. Because I think it's going to have implications down the road. There are going to be things that happen now because Celadril had died, because of the way that she was resurrected, because of the different deities that were called upon. It has drawn their attention. So I think that there is a lot there for me as a DM to use in the future. Similar to, if you've watched Critical Role, you know how Vax'ildan basically sacrificed himself to the Raven Queen to save his sister. And so while it's not that epic, it is the same kind of situation where the choices that they're making in game now are potentially going to have major ramifications down the road. And it's really cool to be able to build a story that has that built into it. So obviously I could talk on and on about this for days, and I'm actually facilitating an extra RP session just for the two of them on Thursday so that they can get through some of their emotional issues. I'm talking about Celadril and Noravar here. So they can get through some of their emotional issues before our next game, so that we don't spend 6 hours with them RPing, which we've done before, but maybe we don't need to do this time. But anyway, that is my experience with player death so far. Now, I haven't had the horror of having someone actually die and not come back. I was actually terrified that that was what was going to happen, and I really thought that if no one should have this power of life and death was kind of the feeling that I had when all of this was happening. It felt like too much almost for me, but I could not be more thrilled with the fact that it turned out well and that it has sparked so many potential storylines and story trait opportunities, seeds for the future. So in a way, it's a good thing. Life and death, it's a cycle. Change is good, and new opportunities abound. So I'm really looking forward to where the story is going to go from here. So have you ever experienced player death? Have you ever had a character of yours die? Have you ever experienced the true death? Or have you had a similar situation to Celadril where your character has come back? As a DM, how do you manage your players in that instance? As soon as I told Emily that her character, like when she rolled that failed save, I got up and I hugged her at the table. I was like, I didn't know what else to do except to just give her a big hug and say, okay, let's try to figure out what happens next. And you know, there were so many emotions happening in that moment. As a DM, do you try to distance yourself? How can you do that when it's a bunch of your friends? But at the same time, how do you manage their expectations of what it's going to be like and what they're going to get out of it? So anyway, like I said, I could talk about this all day, but I think for now that is going to be it. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and of course comment below if you guys have things that you want to talk to me about or you have topics that you want me to talk about. And you can also support us on Patreon if you are interested. One of our tiers is actually the $10 tier. You can name a NPC that will live forever in my campaign. So that is a pretty awesome backer reward, and we have a few of those running around, this is really fun. But yes, so that is an option if you are so inclined. But I guess that's going to be it for today, guys. And I am pretty sure I'm going to catch you all on the next adventure. Bye, guys.